more today from his own experiences and from what we've heard from our movement partners. And as context, I want to say, as Sasha explained, this feels like a really important time to have this particular conversation, and we want to be able to situate it in what's happening right now in Palestine. We understand that the catastrophe that's unfolding today is part of a long and uninterrupted history of violence, which has a root cause, and that is 75 years of settler colonialism, occupation, and military siege. And our hearts have been breaking, along with all of yours, I'm sure, with every life that has been taken. And we're clear that the violence didn't start on October 7th. So all of the ethnic cleansing, land theft, militarized violence, criminalization, forced removal by the Israeli military of Palestine's indigenous peoples is really central to what we see. And from October 7th on, the Israeli government declared, we're imposing a complete siege on Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. And I'm quoting, we are fighting against human animals and we're acting accordingly. It's unconscionable. We have witnessed the Israeli government preventing essential life-giving resources from entering Gaza anywhere near the scale that it's needed. And they're also making it impossible for people in Gaza to feed themselves. We just heard the other day from our partner that the farmers, when they try to go to their fields, are being killed. And their fields have dried up because they can't irrigate them and they can't bring the food back to communities. The fisher people's boats are destroyed. People can't go out and fish. So families are literally running out of food and water. And on top of that, the Israeli government has prevented medicines and fuel from entering Gaza. It means that people who depend on medicines for chronic conditions are in grave danger, as are all the patients in hospitals who stand to shut down in a matter of hours because of the lack of fuel that they need for electricity. My own daughter, when she was born, she was in a NICU for a week. And so particularly hit home when I heard the babies in the NICUs will die within minutes when fuel runs out. So all of this, together with all the bombings, supported with US military aid, killing thousands of civilians, destroying homes, schools, shelters, and other essential infrastructure, it's a situation that more and more people and organizations are calling out as genocide. And it's not limited to Gaza. We've been hearing from partners about settler violence and theft of Palestinian territory having escalated to alarming levels as the Israeli military provides 10,000 assault weapons to settlers. And Palestinians in 48 are facing extreme violence. So taking all of that in, it's hard to absorb, but we do need to bear witness to the truth. And reflecting the grassroots feminist values that we share with our movement partners, we center life and we yearn for peace with justice. From our own home in the US, we're standing up against militarism. We recognize our particular responsibility to oppose our own government's military support to Israel. And we also see our responsibility in this moment, standing with our social movement partners and allies, calling for 3 key demands. 1 is an immediate ceasefire. 2 is safe, unimpeded passage of humanitarian aid, including food, water, medicine, and fuel, into all areas of Gaza in a way that's sufficient and sustained enough to meet the scale of the current catastrophe. And 3, importantly, to refuse to send military aid to Israel. There are 2 actions you can take to support these demands. I'm wondering if maybe some of our colleagues could put them in the chat. 1 is to call Congress, and there's a very simple tool to do that, thanks to the US Campaign for Palestinian Rights. And second is a petition that you can sign that our partner Via Campesina has shared, both for individuals and organizations around the world. And we commit to moving our financial resources to meet this moment and beyond, means providing immediate funding for emergency response, as well as flexible core funding to support our partners and Palestinian civil society groups for the long term, along with others of you who are doing that in this room. And thank you to those who've given to our emergency fund, and we invite others who are interested to do the same. We're also going to continue organizing with other funders to build our collective resolve and commitment. For those who are funders and donors on this call, we'll have a funder briefing on November 1st, and we invite you to register. We can continue to share and build and strategize in that space. So with that, I am really looking forward to the conversation that we'll be having, and I'm going to introduce my sister friend and colleague, Trina Jackson. Her role at Grassroots is Solidarity Program Officer for our U.S. Internationalist Program. She works closely with movement building organizations and groups in the U.S. and Turtle Island, particularly those that are bringing an internationalist lens to work around defense of land, water, territory, seeds, and the earth, including Indigenous peoples, Black communities, farmers, and food producers. And Trina recently was part of a delegation that Grassroots did to Palestine and a trip to Gaza, and we'll be sharing some reflections. Thank you so much, Trina.
Oh, thank you, Sarah, and welcome again to everyone. Really appreciate the opportunity for all of us to connect around these themes of radical love and accompaniment. The delegation that we hosted over the summer, it was in July and August. It was my second trip to Palestine and my first trip to Gaza. And our themes for this delegation was Black and Palestinian solidarity and ecological justice. And these two values were reflected in actually who participated on the delegation. We had movement groups, the Movement for Black Lives, community movement builders. Many of you may recognize the names of these organizations and the work that they're leading. Movement Generation, Climate Justice Alliance, and Grassroots Global Justice. We're all part of this delegation, and those values and the conversations that we had really offered opportunities for deeper connection around these themes. And for me personally, having just been there, 6 weeks ago, maybe, it's just been really painful, just even on that level, reflecting, having flashbacks to the people I met, the meals we had in people's homes, people sharing what their dreams were, what their dreams are, and those dreams are still alive, even while living under this brutal occupation for 75 years. And one of the things that I took away was just how much healing is a connective tissue across all of these things that we're talking about, that comes from a practice that centers love for each other, love for ourselves, love for the land that we're from, love for our ancestors. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on a lot is this concept of samud, this value, this expression of steadfastness. It's a Palestinian cultural value that emerged from the Palestinian people through this experience of oppression and resistance in the wake of the 1967 Six-Day War. And I've been thinking a lot about what I observed, how people were living out this concept of steadfastness. And one of the ways that I saw that was just through the generosity of people, the hospitality, people sharing their food, people being open, people expressing what they wanted in their own voices. And that, for me, that has just stuck with me through this entire assault that we're seeing, this particular stage of the assault. I was also able to visit with two of the projects that we also accompany through a program called the Martin Barreau Initiative. It's a small grant program that supports the work of Indigenous knowledge and practices to heal from the trauma of oppression. This practice grounds my role at Grassroots to foster solidarity between U.S. movements and the liberation work in Palestine, because a lot of these systems of oppression are very similar. They work in similar ways. But one thing that I've learned from people on this call, both from Devin and from Adrienne, is that we've lost the language to really name our connection with each other. We've lost the language that helps us to recognize ourselves in each other and how our liberation is bound to each other. And that, for me, really is how I want to kind of frame my first question, both to Devin and to Ayman, who I'm hoping will ground us in this idea of healing and holding. And if both of you could share, what is it that you're holding that you would like all of us to share in the collective work of holding together right now? What does it mean for us to collectively hold what you're holding as Indigenous people of Palestine? And either of you can go. I don't have in whatever order you feel compelled to go in for this question.
Yeah, please go, Devin.
Sure, Ayman? Okay. So one of the things I'm holding, I would say first, I'd say is the inability to be in any form right now. I can't be just showing up in a space, honestly, right now, and being here and having it have a form, having it have a beginning, having it have an introduction, having it have an end. I can't work like that right now. Like, this is a way in which we are falling into an abyss. And that goes with how I'm parenting. It goes with how I'm being in my work and teaching with colleagues. So just naming that it's not anything about this space in particular. It's just in general that right now it's a time to transgress, to be undisciplined, to be falling apart. And so I'm going to begin with a poem. This is a poem that I'm calling, sorry, let me pull it up. She wrote her name on my hand. And this, let me just introduce it by saying first, I'm a diaspora Palestinian. My family lineage on my father's side goes from the village of Beit Jala, a beautiful mountain village in Beit Lahem, which is enclosed on more than 3 sides by Israeli settlements, including Israeli walls, settler roads, cutting up my family's lands and lives there. I also want to say, to me, as I begin this poem, before I begin it, that I've come to understand how the word Palestinian and the word indigenous are the same. The word indigenous is the same word as survivalence, remaining alive despite the cult of genocidal death that is colonialism. So that is what the word indigenous means to me, and that's what the word Palestinian means to me. So as I read this poem, keep that in mind. Right now, this is a moment of decolonization or bust. Where are our allies? Where is humanity? Khalas. In this moment, in this movement towards life, we're holding the impossible. Our children in Gaza, many are writing their names on their hands, knowing, expecting, waiting to die, to be found, right? And it's only our Palestinian love, our indigenous love of life, land, soul, and soil, connected in all our relationships, that keeps our hearts from being completely destroyed. So with that, I'm going to open with this poem. She wrote her name on my hand. Let us lay our babies down to rest. Like the sand rests as beach, as boundary between land and sea. Rest here, Habibi, to walk and wake as water, sand, and clay. Dead or alive, Gaza, you will always be my people. Never as caged human animals adapted to a zoo. Together as Palestine, we enter humanity haunting our way out. Here, out in the open, as barefoot warriors with sand between our toes. Still, we are so alone. Because genocide feels like the only Palestinian left in the world is yourself, collapsing into immaterial, material of no place, of no time. When our homes become our coffins, when our coffins become our homes. As our children keep digging out children from the debris of other children's bodies. Our babies writing their names on their hands, without hands left. Only my head, spine, and intestines hang, separated from what I used to call my body, which was never my own, now held up in the hands of a passerby. A shredded octopus snatched out of the sea, dripping from the grip of this stranger. But the world sees me now, when they did not see me before. The world sees me now as a bloody rag of flesh, as material, as debris, as no name. Because even my severed hands with my name's calligraphy are lost under the rubble. This is not death. We are the world's waste, sent to the settler landfill, where we poison colonial waters. Eventually, we flow back to the sea, crashing upon the beach as wave, as sand, once again, resting in the sacred boundary, across the threshold of empathy between ocean and land, defiant, patient, healing, and still resisting the settler certainty, the colonial category, the us-them binary. We are all the beach of Gaza, receiving the sea, resting with our dead, long after Israel and all the world's colonial states are only memory. Here, there, then, and now, we will be free. I know this viscerally. An impossible pain I hold in my bones, transformed in the care and caress of my love, whose kiss holds and releases all at the same time, like only real freedom can. How do we make Palestinian love on the day the bombing began? Still naked, we found our way back to the sand. We held each other in and against the genocide of our people, beside the water, heat of fire, and somehow, under the stars, she wrote her name on my hand.
Thank you, Devin. Ayman, please.
Yeah, it is very emotional time for all of us. And what I'm holding deep fear that my mother will die because of the lack of medication. What I am holding that 2,000 children, more than 2,000 children are dying in a broad daylight, and no one can speak about them. But I'm holding, the people are under the rubble. More than 1,500 people are under the rubble. I'm holding a lot, actually, and fear, actually. What I'm mostly holding also, it's just I couldn't even count the number of people who are dying in my, even just my own refugee camp, 60,000 people in it. I even cannot count. But also, despite all of this, we viscerally know that our country will be liberated. That's no brainer. This is like engraved in our hearts and minds and soul, despite everything this world has put on us. Yeah, this is the time holding. Trina, thank you.
And I want to thank you both, Devin, Ayman, Devin, for that beautiful offering and the poem. Adrienne, I wanted to invite you also to respond to what you're hearing in these offerings. And I've learned a lot from you and your work, centering love through a praxis of emergence, being present, emancipation and freedom. And you've centered all of those themes in your work in many ways. So if you would offer up some responses also, and what you're holding that you would like collectively held as well. Yeah.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for creating this, opening this portal, this space to be together with each other. And I think the main thing I want to say is, and it's been thrumming, it's just in me all the time, is I'm so sorry. As someone who pays taxes in this country, I'm so sorry to Palestinian people right now. I'm so sorry. We have been working hard and we haven't done enough. We have been aware of this suffering and this struggle, and we have done solidarity work, and it's not enough because it wasn't in time. And for each of the people that has died since October 7th, this round, I'm so sorry. And for the past 75 years, I'm so sorry. And I hope that one day it will be easy for everybody who pays taxes here to say, I'm so sorry, and to understand the responsibility that we hold in what has happened here. I want to say that I'm watching, like I'm bearing witness, I'm paying attention, I'm not turning away. And I know so many other people who are also not turning away, not turning off the news, not moving on to the next crisis, not trying to collapse other crises into this crisis, but trying to just hold space right now for the grief that is unfolding, for the crisis that is unfolding. I want to say I can hold more than my portion in this life. So I think that maybe that's one of the acts of solidarity that I didn't expect or I didn't know to prepare for. But I think that part of what it means to be in a place that has the privilege to turn away is to actually say, I'm going to turn towards, and I'm going to try to hold more. I have my own grief that I'm walking with in this lifetime, but I can hold more. And I think that in some way we have to all be willing to take on more in order to help our brothers and sisters move through this period where they are being asked to hold too much, because we are one. Like I keep coming back to this, like we're not separate from each other. listening to your poem, Devin, I can feel, I can see, I can hold every child I've ever loved being the one who is coming up to someone and saying, I need to write my name on your hand. Can you write my name on my body? I've been really trying to bring myself as close as I can. I can hold the prayers for your mother. I can hold the prayers for your mother getting her medication. I want to hold the relationships that we're in, that even though it seems like, and it is happening, people are being silenced right now for trying to just say what is happening. But we're not all being silenced. And some of us have it's not even the power. I have been shocked at how our country is structured such that those who seem to have the most power actually have the least freedom to speak truthfully about what is happening. And so what you see happening here is that none of us are free, and that keeps getting exposed in new ways. We're not free while anyone is imprisoned, we know that, but we're also not free if we can't speak up about what's happening. And so in this moment, I hold accountable all the people in my life. I've been calling people and being like, you can speak. What makes you think you can't speak up about this? What makes you think you can't call your Congress people, that your name will get written down somewhere? What makes you think you can't lose this job if this job won't allow you to speak about genocide? You can speak, and trying to open more and more doors, because I think we are actually in a really crucial moment of unveiling what is happening. You know, James Baldwin talks about that we can't solve everything we face, but we can't even begin to face things that, to change anything that we're not willing to face. And right now, I think a lot of people are in a facing moment with this. So I can hold some of that too, as being like continuously trying to bring something forward and say, look, just be willing to consider maybe there's something else to learn here. I'm also holding for myself that there's more to learn. I'm holding for myself that there's more to learn. Yeah, that's what's all coming up in me right now.
Thank you for that. Our vision was that this would be kind of a free-flowing conversation between you, Adrienne, and Devin, and I can pose a question that gets us started. Okay. And you just mentioned something in your reflection about this relationship between speaking and freedom. Mm-hmm. I have a question that I'm formulating. I'm gonna come back to that. So okay. Just give me a few minutes just to work on that. I do want to come back to that because I think that's a very interesting and really powerful and deep kind of thread there. Mm-hmm. But both of your work, Devin and Adrienne, centers on collective healing from the trauma caused by systems of oppression. Mm-hmm. What does it mean for us to talk about healing at a time like this, as the trauma is being inflicted? Is that the right conversation we should be having right now? If not, what is the right conversation? So it's kind of a two-part question. What does it mean to kind of talk about trauma as it's being inflicted? And if that's even the right focus of our energy?
I can speak to that briefly, and or maybe not briefly, I don't know, just speak to it. I am, also Adrienne, hearing you speak, I felt like a quiet courage that I really appreciate, and I think we need a lot of that right now. I think for me, as a Palestinian, in terms of healing, I feel like we steal healing. We steal it right now. Like we're stealing love. We're stealing it back from people who took it from us.
Mm.
You know, the colonial world alienates and dehumanizes us right now, trying to do it into oblivion.
Yeah.
You know, yet we're still here and we're stealing it. We're stealing it back because we know loving and living are always stuck together, right? But the colonizer wants us to live in fear, to fear our desire, to fear our demand for freedom. They want to punish us in almost the most impossible and horrific way, right? They're trying to turn Gaza into the backside of the moon, into like unlivingness, craters, just craters and craters and craters, emptiness. And then to fill it, that emptiness with their emptiness, right? There's this way in which settler society, with what you were saying, Adrienne, is that you're realizing that folks that think they have power actually aren't free themselves, right? It's not only to me that they're not, it's not about, definitely not about freedom, but it's really about an emptiness. The settler society, which is always international, right? It's not it's Israel, it's the settler society international that we are here as well. And it's USA, it's Europe, and so much more. The settler international project is descending upon Palestine and making Palestine the ultimate evil, the representation of the colonized human animal that must be ethnically cleansed in order to clean, in order to of course, in a way that I feel like we are the site of all the world's projections right now. Everyone is projecting their stuff on us.
Yeah.
And the colonial world, the West is projecting all their insecurities, their fears, their emptiness, and all the failures of modernity has descended upon us. And when people see the craters and destruction in Gaza, you are seeing yourself. You are seeing the emptiness of coloniality, and we are paying the price for it. And it's just it's beyond injustice. Like injustice is the wrong word, right? The world ending, it's the world ending tendencies of the white world, the emptiness of life saturated in whiteness. And I'm not talking about like identity politics here. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it doesn't matter. You're Black, you're Asian American, Native American, multiracial, Latina, white, brown, light skin, European descent, diaspora Palestinian. It's not about identity politics in that way. It's about how are we all immersed in coloniality, in settler society, so saturated in whiteness. You know, the carceral security systems deployed to educate, to discipline us into maintaining or reproducing it. So our mortuaries are our graves that are collective graves right now that are so everywhere in Gaza. For example, the way in which people are struggling to sleep because of the smell of the open graves.
Yeah.
Right. The way in which our corpses, our dead babies are being fed to the colonial modern system to desensitize all of modernity to the suffering of the marginalized. Like it's this politic of hatred, this of needing more and more death to uphold the structure of the unliving, the absence of love, the complete absence of genuine care and protection that is coloniality, that is colonialism. Right? There's no real security, no real interest in protecting Earth's soil ecologies of our livingness. And so that's kind of this feeling that I'm in right now, that it's like, the way in which our Palestinian people are, as you said, are facing this unveiling, this extreme unmasking of the colonial world that's really genocidal and has always been genocidal, right? And we're just the what is it, the fault line right now. We are the fault line.
That's right.
In this moment, and we're falling in. And so what are people going to do about that?
I feel you. I've been reflecting a lot on the cycles of colonial violence and how where you are in that cycle shapes your sense of self, shapes your sense of safety. So it's very interesting to me to be a Black person in the US, where I'm like, I live on a land that was stolen from people. I was my lineage is that I was stolen from somewhere and brought to this place. And I have a lineage of the people who did the stealing and who did the work, you know, using my people to work fields. It's all in there. And then for this country to be any kind of moral ground on which we would decide how someone else approaches doing their colonial work, right? I'm like, it blows my mind that people are struggling so hard to see the parallels, to see the connection, and to understand in the same way that there are Indigenous people still in the US, there are always going to be Palestinian people. And so much of what's happening now determines what the relationship of being a Palestinian to the world is, in the same way that right now we're in this conversation on what is the relationship of Indigenous people to the US, to the world, and that the solution always is land back. The solution is always land back. The solution is always, oh, we've come out of balance with what the earth wanted to give us, that the earth wants to give everybody, every living thing, abundant space to be. And so the only healing kernel, the only seed I can see in this moment is when something is truly deeply wounding us, we can't even begin to heal until we turn and see that we are wounded, right? If we walk around and we're like, I'm fine, we're fine. I'm like, you're not fine if you are quietly letting this unfold. Then you're going to pay for it. You're not fine. Something is really wounded in you if you think that it's okay to continue on. You're not fine. You're not fine if you let this happen in your name. You're not fine if you let this happen. You know, I've been having this conversation with so many of my Jewish comrades of like, you're not fine if this is happening in the name of your safety, in the name of safety of Jewish people in the world. Something is really not fine if this is the cost that's required to pay. And it doesn't stop here, right? It's a wound that I think continues to unfold, right? So I'm like, I think we're at the beginning of this wound. And even though we're 75 years in, we're still at the beginning of a certain woundedness that I do think we're heading into a much larger war period of human history. And I think we have to turn and face that is what is happening. And inside of that, we have to hold on to each other and hold on to the land as much as we possibly can. I think that there's no healing that doesn't happen without actually being able to make sure that people have home, and that people can be home, and that people can go home. And I've been wrestling with this. I keep, I'm like, I think we have to go through, I hope what we are going through right now is the ring of fire. I hope that we are going through something that allows something new to birth into the world, a new way of seeing each other, a new way of being in solidarity with each other. But I have seen this happen before, and I have hoped this before. A lot of what I've been sitting with right now is how to see solidarity as the way love gets practiced in this moment. Relinquishing borders, but holding on to each other. I keep thinking that. I'm like, how do I not see what's happening in Palestine as a different place from what's happening here? How do I see us as one place, one people, one relationship? I hear June Jordan in my head all the time. Now I am become Palestinian. I'm like, what does that actually mean? How do I take that on? I love when the Palestinian means indigenous and indigenous means Palestinian. And I'm like, that I think the goal for all of us has to be finding our relationship to land that doesn't allow anything like this to happen. But yeah, I think in this moment, the most healing thing that can happen is getting more people to turn and actually face what is unfolding and not turn away. There's also something that I think all the time, which is when you look at something broken, if you can see wholeness in it, that itself is a healing behavior. And so I keep looking at these videos of the footage that's coming out from Raza and trying to imagine and see olive trees, to see people at peace, to see people taking care of each other, to see families whole, to know that that is what's on the other side of this, however long it takes. That feels like part of the work as well.
I'm so grateful for this. And oh yeah, thank you for bringing Ayman and Trina into the circle. I think these reflections are so deep. And yeah, I know, Ayman, you did some reflecting on some additional words you were wanting to share. So we'd love to hear that.
Thank you, Devin and Adrienne, for your deep reflection. I apologize for being vulnerable today. I'm speaking my mind and my heart.
Please.
These past 18 days of active, intentional genocide of my people have shifted so much for all of us. I will share a few statements now that I try to express some of what we are holding right now as Palestinian, as indigenous people, as people, and what we need people and allies to hold with us. I am holding the loss of 12 members of my family today from the mother side in Rafah city, South Gaza Strip, 12 members. And I have been informed there are 18. So, but still we are not numbers. We lost the wife, son, and daughter of Fida El-Lidawi, the former recreational director of Afaq Jadida, one of our healing justice grantees in Palestine. I worked with Fida for several years when I was managing the project Let the Children Play and Heal. He literally drew smiles on the lips of thousands of children. As you know, in Gaza, we have two shifts in the school, and every shift has more than 1,500. And I just couldn't sleep that Fida. His wife, his daughter, his son was completely, was obliterated. Their house was obliterated. And he just social worker, recreational, doing dabka, which is a Palestinian folklore dance, and doing, recreational training. I remember actually, it just comes to my mind, we have F-16 fighters in one of the schools, and we were still steadfast, smooth, and we playing with the kids while the kids are struggling. He was severely injured in the attack. Hopefully right now, they texted me that he is like in the hospital, and the hospital actually there's no space. There's no space. They are building tents. So I wish him a speedy recovery. He struggled actually, and this is personal. He struggled to have babies for over 4 years, and then now his kids are gone. My heart is extremely heavy, and sorry, I barely slept for the last 18 days, so I'm gonna try to articulate as much as I can. When I spoke with my sister yesterday, she told me that they cannot even sleep from the heavy bombardment. They even cannot sleep on our refugee camp, and if they can't take a nap, they have to put a mask on because they live close to the cemetery. And the smell of the bodies are extremely strong. Mm. There are not enough graves in our refugee camps. I mean, there are not enough place for all this. And I think most of you have heard the news. Yesterday, actually, 800 people have been murdered without compunction, remorse, or contrict. More than 6,500, as of now, we are 6,500 have been murdered. I even cannot count on my family and friends who have been murdered. I mean, I'm speaking about my neighbors. I'm speaking about my friends, my neighbors. They are not even with any political ideology. I mean, just we as Palestinians are few numbers alive on the Turtle Island in the heart of the empire in the USA, but are so many dead there on our lands in Palestine. My dear friend Saad, he is the executive director of Union of Agricultural Work Committees, lost more than 30 family members just 2 days ago. And I swear to God, he just texted me now, they are having more too. I just received the number of the dead. And in 2008, Saad lost his mother, brother, and nephews and sister-in-law in an Israeli bombing. This is a continuous genocide that we have been yelling about it, literally yelling about it, from slow motion genocide from 16 years ago to fast motion genocide. Devin, thank you, Devin, for coming to help me in this horrendous time. He came to my house just to dig deeper into what I feel right now. Even I want to be, introvert. I'm not into being extrovert, but he came and just to listen to me. And Devin wrote up a story that I shared, and he used a pseudonym for me to protect my identity, because as you know, we are vulnerable right now with the rise of Islamophobia and Palestinian phobia. And also it was published last night in the Journal of Palestine Studies blog. If you can share it, Devin, that would be great. In that story I shared with Devin as he was visiting me in my house, and I shared with Devin how a few days ago I was on the phone with a frontline worker from Palestine Medical Relief Society, which is one of our grantees, who was responding to bombing in Gaza. She was explaining to me she and others on her team were struggling to find survivors, bodies, corpses. As she was sharing with me, I noticed that I suddenly began to travel in time, to be flooded with memories of 2008, when I was a translator and journalist responding to a massacre of farmers in a community in Gaza. I was at a site where 28 members of a Samoni family, that is a big case actually, 28 members of one family were killed in an Israeli bombing. And as I was struggling to overturn the rubble of the houses, I stumbled upon a woman who was on the ground shouting and actively giving birth. There was no medical relief yet, and the Israeli army would not let the ambulance into the area. That's why I call it medium to fast motion genocide 4 years ago. I kneeled down beside her. I noticed she was badly injured and bleeding everywhere. She was having contraction, about to birth her baby, and I lifted and held.
We're with you, Ayman.
We're here with you, Ayman.
We love you, Ayman. We love you, Ayman.
Love you back. I lifted and held her head off the ground as she pushed her baby out. Once the baby emerged, I knew I needed to cut the umbilical cord, but I didn't have any tools. I have no training. My hands and everything around me were covered in dust and blood. I saw that the mother was in a terrible condition and would likely die. I realized I had only three options. To save her somehow, to stay with her as she died in my arms, or leave her and keep looking for others who may have a higher chance of surviving. And what about the baby? I was frozen in this impossible state of non-existence. This was hell on earth. I stood with her in hell. There are Palestinian moments that so many of us hold and remember under our skin, especially us from Gaza. Then I traveled in time again. I was back with the frontline responder who was still speaking into my other ear, describing scenes of horror from the present moment, from the now, where body parts are everywhere. People shouting sharp edges at each step, everything broken and collapsed. She was speaking with me about the same decision I had to make in 2008. She was speaking with me about the same decision that I have to make in 2008. Do I search for survivors, or do I stay with people who are dying in my arms? And that's very hard. That's a quandary. That's to be forced between fight, flight, or being frozen. On the phone, it was as if we are both running. I mean, we are running, both losing our breath together, losing everything. It was as if we were falling into the abyss of genocide. A black hole strong enough to swallow our light. I could hear our struggles to breathe on the phone, but I can hear it. She knows I know. She knows I understand. I support her in making the impossible decisions, 100%. Sharing words of love, affection, and support. As we say our goodbyes in Arabic, مع المحبة, with much love. One thing I want to add before I end, usually when I try to contact my family for the last, I keep contacting them like every week. My brother goes to the hospitals to find a Wi-Fi to call me. But in the last 3 days, I had no contact with them. Even if I call from Skype International, actually, they will get afraid that there is a warning sign from the Israeli military. They will bombard the house. That's why I said, I'm not going to call you to make you terrified. But my sister, when I called her, how are you? I said, no, how are you? We indigenous people share the love, even we are underground. I said, like in psychology, I cannot even find words for it. I mean, you are in a genocidal situation and you are talking to me about how are you doing? So our indigenous love, our Palestinian love is what we hold onto now more than ever. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable, to allow us, to speak about decolonial love and indigenous love, because we teach life there, and we aspire to live free, and we have to cast the yoke of oppression, but we need everyone to help us, because there is no other option. We really have no luxury to stay colonized for all of our life. We lost thousands. I mean, every family has a political prisoner. We have more than 5,000 political prisoners. We cannot count our death all of our lives because of secular colonial projects across the globe and global dominance. And I thank you again, Trina, Adrienne. It is an honor to be in this space with you. And Devin, I love you, brother. And thank you for being with me all of the time in this, genocidal living. Thank you.
Yes.
Ayman, thank you so much for your testimony, your teaching, your witnessing, and for letting us see in your body what we need to understand, what we need to learn in this moment. Thank you for letting us hear you. Thank you for the generosity of sharing your grief.
Yes, I must say thank you for feeling.
Yeah.
I know I talked to my cousin on the phone this morning, Palestine, and we celebrated because she cried for the first time in 18 days.
Yeah.
I think we need to celebrate that vulnerability feels like such an inadequate word. It's not, I don't see that. Where vulnerability is courage too, but I just feel you feeling the depth of pain, of rage, of love. That is vitality. That's life. Like I feel your life. I feel the land in you. And I feel all the registers of joy that are behind all of that.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Was I muted?
No, we hear you. You sound great.
We hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I just want to name how I see your registers of joy too, and that are behind. So I keep getting muted, but if someone else wants to talk, it's cool.
No, I think that I think they're just managing as participants are tuning in and trying to figure out how to listen. We want to hear what you have to say, Devin.
Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time. I don't know why that happened. I think
I
what I
heard
was
you say
saying
you
was,
see the register of joy.
Yeah.
yes, that's what I want to say. Like, because I think that's so important that it's so clear that, you know, as we in Palestine resist, the world fucking loses its mind, right? And then they come blasting all the bombs against us, right? But it's so clear to us. We know, and I see it in you, Ayman, and you feel it in me, right? And when we're together, when we are together as Palestinians, loving on each other, it's dangerous for the world, right? Your pleasure, and it's dangerous not really because it's life-giving, and so the world, as it recycles, it's going to be it's medicine the world needs. So, you know, I just want to say that your registers of love are unkillable, are always ungovernable, unconquerable, connected to the vitality of the earth and of our Palestine. And so when I say I love you as an individual, I love you as Palestine. And let's keep making the colonizers lose their minds.
I mean, we have no luxury just to keep them lose their mind because
That's right.
they are sequestering our land. They are not even giving us a chance of peace. I mean, we would love. I mean, it is. I believe deep inside that we center life. My mother, my dad, how they taught me that center life, center life, center life, center life. But also we cannot allow mayhem on our people to continue. We do the best we can in healing justice, in agroecology, in climate justice, like as part of Grassroots International. And it is really, I want to take this a chance, not because it is my work, it is really my deepest honor to work with the Grassroots International, to learn from Trina. Oh my God. She is like, when we went to Gaza, oh my God, everyone loved her.
Well, I just want to say I ate I had a meal in Ayman's house cooked by his mama. She was running the kitchen. It was beautiful. We were all together around the table eating. The joy that Devin is seeing in you, I experienced that. And it was the honor of my life.
Yeah, thank you, Trina. And all of, you know, the team is really like, was one of the most, I mean, I grew up and born in Gaza all of my life, but that trip to bring Trina and two of other colleagues to Gaza was really, you know, like liberation praxis, like also to bring people in. But I'm really honored to be calling you my sister, Trina, and to accompany us and in this struggle for emancipation, for this struggle of self-determination, for this struggle of just to live a life. I mean, thank you.
Sada, I see that there's a question someone has their hand raised. Are we at the point where we want to do that, or I'm not quite sure where we are?
I think we would love for the four of you to continue in dialogue with one another.
Okay.
For folks who are participants, we invite you to chat us if you have a reflection or comment or thought, but we're really focusing on the conversation between the four of you right now.
One thing I want to add, when I used to work for the project Let the Children Play and Heal, we have a component, I think it is related to this conversation. We have writing. We don't use therapy because there's a stigma related to it, to the word therapy in like community traumatology and trauma. So We actually give a sheet of paper for kids, just 5 years, and like a pencil, and draw what you think. And we come, and do you know what they draw? They draw weapons, missiles, and 70% of this missile, like this drawing, is the United States. And that's 6 years old and 7 years old. So there's like that, like before 2014. I mean, if some of you know, 2014 was 53 days. But also those children, because we are in this space, that we are not talking even, some people said ongoing trauma or PTSD. We are talking right now about genocidal trauma. And we should decolonize Eurocentric psychology that failed actually to capture the moment, failed. Just they can go and know. You don't need a psychology degree to heal kids. You just listen to what they want, and this is the contextually appropriate and culturally sensitive way to heal people under the colonial project.
Oh, Adrienne, we need to help you unmute. I see that. Okay, thank you.
I wanted to pick up, Ayman, on what you're saying here, because, you know, the decolonial project piece of it, I feel like there's a piece on what is the narrative thread that pulls us all together in this moment, that allows us to do work together, to understand our common struggle in this moment, and to understand the colonization project that happened in the US, and that we're not free from it, right? That the blood never washes out, actually, that the country is cursed in many ways because of the foundation and because of what has been ongoing. So there's never really been a way of breaking out of the cycle of violence that created the founding of this country. And I think that's the same thing in Palestine. There's no way out of a cycle of violence where you're trying to genocidally remove people from the land that they're on. And so it never ends. And the idea, the colonial concept that you can be safe if you just build a bigger wall and you just have more weapons and you just make things less and less fair and you push people into smaller and smaller reservations, or, you know, camps, open air prisons, you know, all these ways of talking about holding people captive for no reason other than that they are not what you think of as you, right? All of these ways of speaking of that, that cycle never ends, and it actually never disappears. And I think about it all the time as there is something that the colonial project is always planting, and then is always so surprised when the thing grows that they have planted, right? I'm like, if you plant a missile, the thing that grows from that is violence. That's the only thing that can grow from that. And if we want something different, then we have to begin to plant something different. And I think in this moment, we're figuring out, how do we plant a decolonial seed in as many people as possible who are watching this moment? I'm like, how do you connect yourself to this moment? Do you want to be a part of this ongoing colonial endeavor, or do you want a part of intervention, of stopping it, of ending it? And what does that actually look like to end it? What does it actually look like? For some people that I've been talking with, they're really confused, like, well, why don't they just leave? And it's like really being able to say to people, first of all, if you don't have control over where you're going, and you don't have control over the openings and the borders and the pathways, there's not a way to leave. But second, if you leave knowing you can never come back, then what you're truly doing is surrendering to people who have wanted to disappear you in the first place. And I think for folks to understand, there's a reason why there are still Indigenous people in the US, is because they said, we will not leave. We will stay, we will endure, we will persist. You will have to deal with us, we will stay. And now we're in this process of, you know, every time we do these land acknowledgements, I'm like, I'm glad that we're doing those, but I'm so sad that we have to do this thing that is being on the right side of history in retrospect, rather than being on the right side in the present moment of the present conditions. And so I feel like this is this learning moment for us, where we're being called in of like, what does it actually look like right now? And right now, as far as I can tell, and maybe this is a question I want to ask both of you, is do you see us doing enough? Like, you know, the stepping forward, the lifting up of voices, the raising up the stories, the sharing the stories, calling our Congress people. If you were to direct us to do more, what would be more, right? What do you want and need to see more of in our solidarity work?
Thank you, Adrienne, for that. Ayman, did you want to say
I know. Go ahead, please. I can
Okay.
add.
Okay. You know, I think that before speaking to doing more piece,
Yeah.
I want to speak to the piece about planting the decolonial seed,
Yeah.
because I like that image, really is resonating with me.
I'm not surprised because I learned it in part from your work. I'm like so obsessed with this curriculum that you created. And I know we don't have time to always talk about everything, but like I do before we leave, I want everyone to know about this incredible curriculum because it has really shifted how I think and think about decolonization as something that we plant and that grows over time rather than just something that we do as one act. So anyway.
Love, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so that's part of the piece about we're all one, as you said, like reflecting back to each other, helping each other see each other. I appreciate that. I think there's something about alignment, and I love that in your work too. You know, how are we being what we're called? Not so much to be, but how do we be what we're called to do with the life that we have? And part of it is like, for us Palestinians, there's a way, this is something that folks in Palestinian Feminist Collective have taught me in some ways, about how Palestinian psyches are free, and even when our bodies aren't, and that we've known that, and maybe that's connected to our indigeneity, right? We're free because we're so deeply connected to our souls, as souls being land, right? And there's a way that you can't make us unfree ever, unless we're off the land, maybe, right? Maybe then there's this way that you have a control over us that we didn't have access to. But as we still are rooted in our lands, there's a way that we are free, and that nothing you can do will take that from us. And we know that in our bodies so deeply, and in our lineage so deeply. And so part of the planting the decolonial seed, and maybe this is connected to what hoping folks can work in solidarity with, is around just starting to see and support and accompany us as we move into ourselves, as we work for that alignment, to say, you know, as our hunger strikers teach us this, right? That, you know, that yes, our souls are free, our spirits are free, even when our bodies are detained, even when we can't move upon the earth. Yeah. And you know, so what's a metaphor of that? What's a hunger strike at the national level here in the US? What is that? What would that metaphor, how would we take that and scale that up? What does it mean for everyone to say, you know what, we are free, our Palestinian people are already free, and this is what we're going to do until the structures acknowledge it? You know, I don't know what that would be, but that's the image that's coming to mind.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. I think 7 years ago, remember when you gave me a book, What Does Justice Mean to Us, by a Dakota author? And it really, I cried in that time. I read a book also, The Wounded Soul. Is that correct, Devin? And also about and I feel that she's writing about us. And she was writing about them. This is one thing. I think knowledge, for me, it's just, I mean, you can call the Congress, and that's great. You can do a lot of advocacy, but knowledge is extremely important. Terminology, also, the indigenous knowledge is extremely important. And I also, it just come to my mind, I know Dr. Eric from, he's a psychiatric, Jewish psychiatrist. Yeah. He wrote a book, The Sin Society, when he was talking about the symbiotic relationship between a mother and a son, between us and the earth. It just, knowledge is extremely important. Also, intersectionality. I mean, deep intersectionality with other brothers and sisters. This is extremely important. We are talking about a long haul struggle for freedom, as Dr. Angela Davis said. Second, I also very important, I mean, since we are talking about healing, Dr. Francis Fanon, which I love reading. I mean, he's like, I told like Devin last time, he was like, maybe he was drunk. Well, he was literally like feeling the pain and struggle of everyone. And Devin was like, are you really, I encourage everyone to read him, and just to read him, to read what his psychiatric, and he died when he was 37 years, and but just to read him, it's extremely important to understand also this intersectionality. And Francis Fanon said, internalize oppression. This is what they want to do. Is most internalized quote, internalized oppression is most resistant to change, because you have to liberate the oppressed inside and the oppressor outside. Lastly, I think this is not from like, you know, terms of like advocacy. This is from someone who studies psychology. So this is what like beyond advocacy, beyond Congress, terminology. There's a difference between colonization and settler colonial studies. Colonization, like the French came to after 130 years in Algeria, they went out. But we are talking about settler colonial system, invasive society come and take a country. Like, I mean, you saw recently, lastly, I know we have to finish, like when there was a settler actually in Jerusalem, and asked one of the women, she asked him actually, why you are taking my land? Why are you taking my land, my house? He said, if I don't take it, someone will take it. So the idea of using words and settler colonialism, I mean, we have been saying apartheid since we were born, actually. I mean, 3 years ago, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, B'Tselem, Israeli Human Rights Organization, they came with like, even we have been saying that as indigenous people like for 75 years. I mean, because we live it. Yeah, thank you for your great question, Adrienne. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for these answers. I really appreciate this piece around terminology. I feel like so much of what's happening right now is trying to help people understand, you know, like I find myself trying to listen, like, I'm like, what is it that you think is going on that allows you to stay quiet in this moment? What is it you think that is going on that allows you to ask questions in this moment? Because you wouldn't ask them if they were your kids. You wouldn't ask this if it was your family there, but something's keeping you from being able to hold that empathy. And I do want people who are listening. I posted a piece today from Hala Alian, she's a poet and a writer, and she wrote this piece for the New York Times that is incredible, which is asking people about why are they making Palestinian people audition for empathy. And it's behind a paywall on the New York Times site, but I just I took pictures of the whole thing and put it all on my Instagram, because I was like, everyone needs to be able to read this, and because it's this terminology, it's this mindset, it's this way of thinking. And I also really appreciate, you know, to me, I'm like, we're in the solidarity work for our whole lives, because none of us are in struggles that began since we were born. Every struggle that we're involved in began before we were born. And these are long haul fights. So I hear also embedded in both of your answers to not think short term about the solidarity that we're engaging in right now, but to think about how are we building relationships that will last a long time, because we're going to be doing this work for a long time.
I think I just, before I know, Trina, you probably want to say something, just a quick thing about the now, because I appreciate that about the long term. There are some short term things that are important to give voice to real quick.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are losing our jobs or be getting death threats. Like I'm talking about here in the US.
Here in the US,
you know, I think learning from Black liberation around protecting each other, you know, literally on the phone with community members already trying to think about alternatives to safety for us and looking out for each other. I think we need more of that. I think we need people in our institutions to be meeting with us and checking in on ways to secure and be a part of that. You know, so I think we need people to understand that we are showing up in ways that, like, this has already happened. People have been cooking and sharing food with each other, and with you know, if you know Palestinians in your community, like reach out, making sure that they're getting support. Like, it's hard to leave the house right now. It's really hard to be around people. that are not Palestinian. Like, just
Yeah.
honestly, it's kind of maddening to see how people are going about their daily lives.
Yes.
And it makes you feel like, I don't even want to see people. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to take a walk. I don't want to look around and see people doing their shit. It makes you feel really crazy. And so I've been going to your house, not out of like a place, let me help Ayman. It's like, I need to be with my Palestinian folks. You know, we need to be together right now. And I think so, or we need to be with people who are ready to say, like, we're stopping and we're being with you, and we're not continuing our daily, like, as you're under existential threat and actively being, the genocidal violence is everywhere, and the anti-Palestinian racism is increasing here locally in ways that we don't understand. It's very scary. Like, we're here, we got you. Like, we're gonna be there to protect you, and that means you're gonna lose shit too. People are gonna come for you.
Yeah.
Right. We know that, and that happens. So those are some maybe more shorter term things to get ready for, to step up.
I think I really appreciate you saying that, because I think there's also a way it can feel like not enough, but so much, to go and be with Palestinian people right now and hold grief, just hold space for grief, and just hold space for, like, I see this is happening, and I know that I hold it with you and I sit with you. I think for folks, if you're like, I don't do action, or I don't see myself as an action person, but one of the things I will remind people of is, if you go to the marches or if you go to the actions, there are going to be Palestinian people there, and you can connect with people and you can just hold space, right? You can flank people so that they are protected physically, can get the experience of being surrounded by a community, so that they can step up and say and tell the truth of what they need to say. Because I think sometimes we don't think about putting our bodies in the way of bodies that seek to harm folks who are already oppressed and already grieving and already going through so much, both institutionally and, like, literally and physically. And online, I know that online is its own world, but I do think that for me, uplifting Palestinian voices has been an important act. And I keep telling people to do this, like, rather than making another video of yourself talking about Palestinians, like, if you can use the space to actually uplift Palestinian voices speaking about Palestine, I think that really helps for folks to just be like, the thing that is happening inside of people is they don't think that they can be racist against Palestinians, or they don't think they can be anti-Palestinian, they don't think they can be anti-Arab, because they don't know how steeped inside of that culture they actually are. And so I'm like, you don't even, I was like, when was the last time you actually learned from someone Palestinian? Just try that on.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think, and going to the protests is huge. We need, like, mass disruption right now until the genocide stops, at least short-term genocide. So everybody in the streets. There's a national march on November 4th in Washington, D.C. People are going from all over the country. Be there. Everyone be there. We need everybody out on the streets.
We will be there, Devin.
So I wish this conversation could go on and on. Like, I feel like it's just the kind of bomb and also call to urgent action that we needed in this moment, bringing together both of those things, the kind of the love that we feel for each other and that we want to bring more people into, and then also the urgency of translating that love into every possible manifestation of it that we can in this moment. So I think that's our imperative right now. Like, everyone on this call is like, these folks have taken, like, risks to be here with us today. Like, nobody undercount or, like, discounts, like, it's an act of courage to be here in this space. And, like, let's give back by doing everything that we possibly can. And also the folks, especially Ayman, sharing from like such a heart space. So much gratitude for you and so much love. I know everyone is feeling this, and I know Ayman, you're especially feeling this. So much love to you. Part of the idea of these spaces is just to let folks know also that we can be a political home. Like, if you don't have a place where you're connected to opportunities, like, we can be that. And there's lots of opportunities. Trina does work, with grassroots movements and connecting them to Palestinian movements. I do work with donors and other folks that have resources to move, or, like, anybody really, whether you have resources or not, it doesn't matter. Like, $5 is resources. So, like, come in
and be part of this. And, you know, it's not about moving money, like it is, and it's not. It's about moving money, and it's about like putting it all on the line, you know, and doing what you can at this moment where there's nothing else to be done but do that. So come do that with us. You know, that's the invitation to be part of this community of radical love. We're going to follow up tomorrow with some emails with some specific opportunities of what, you know, that you could be part of to join us. And then also in your own lives, like all the suggestions that have been offered are beautiful. Like it doesn't just have to be with us, but you know, it's a place. If you need a place, we can be that. We're at time. We did want to end with a poem. So what I was thinking, just to extend, if everybody could just extend your tremendous gratitude in whatever way with your body that you can for these beautiful speakers who have shared so much with us and opened up so much in terms of like radical possibility for us through their generosity. So much appreciation for you all and so much love. And we'll play this poem to end that Ayman has introduced us to, that Ayman you referenced in your remarks, called "We Teach Life, Sir." We'll play it. You know, folks can stay if you're able, and we'll just have silence after. There'll be no closing, but we just want to end with that remembering that what's happening right now is that Palestinians and Palestinian movements are the people teaching us what we need to know to reclaim our humanity and to reclaim our capacity for radical love. So we'll play that poem. Josephine is going to help us. And thank you to all the staff who's been supporting on the tech. Much gratitude for that as well. So thank you all for being here. And we'll end with this poem. Thank you, Ayman, for sharing it with us.
I'll start with this poem. I wrote this poem when the bombs were dropping on Gaza, and I was the media spokesperson for the coalition, doing a lot of the organizing. And we had stayed up to about 6 o'clock in the morning, perfecting every soundbite. And by the end, if you're Palestinian, you know most Palestinians get tired and start pronouncing our P's as B's. So we become Palestinians by the end of the day. So I was practicing my P's all night. And the next morning, one of the journalists asked me, "Don't you think it would all be fine if you just stopped teaching your children to hate?" I did not insult the person. I was very polite. But I wrote this poem as a response to these types of questions we Palestinians always get. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into soundbites and word limits. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into soundbites and word limits, filled enough with statistics to counter measured response. And I perfected my English. I learned my resolutions, but still he asked me, "Ms. Ziyada,
I think there's a problem with the audio.
If you would just stop teaching."
All right. Here, let me reshare the screen.
Yeah, one thought is if people are on video, maybe if you turn your videos off, it might give us the space to be able to hear the audio better. So we could try that.
All right, cool. I'll reshare it now. Let's see.
Thank you.
So much hatred to your children. Pause. I look inside of me to be patient.
Oops.
Thank you, Josephine. Much appreciation.
But patience is not the tip of my tongue as the bombs drop over Gaza. Patience has just escaped me. Pause. Smile. We teach life, sir. Rafif, remember to smile. Pause. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians teach life after they have occupied the last sky. We teach life after they have built their settlements and apartheid walls. After the last skies, we teach life, sir. But today, my body was a TV'd massacre made to fit into sound bites and word limits. And just give us a story, a human story. You see, this is not political. We just want to tell people about you and your people. So give us a human story. Don't mention that word apartheid and occupation. This is not political. You have to help me as a journalist to help you tell your story, which is not a political story. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. How about you give us a story of a woman woman in Gaza who needs medication. How about you? Do you have enough bone-broken limbs to cover the sun? Hand me over your dead and give me the list of their names in 1,200 word limits. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre made to fit into sound bites and word limits and move those that are desensitized to terrorist blood. But they felt sorry. They felt sorry for the cattle over Gaza. So I give them UN resolutions and statistics, and we condemn and we deplore and we reject. And these are not two equal sides, occupier and occupied, and 100 dead, 200 dead, and 1,000 dead. And between that war crime and massacre, I vent out words and smile, not exotic. Smile, not terrorist. And I recount, 100 dead, 200 dead, 1,000 dead. Is anyone out there? Will anyone listen? I wish I could wail over their bodies. I wish I could just run barefoot in every refugee camp and hold every child, cover their ears so they wouldn't have to hear the sound of bombing for the rest of their life the way I do. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre, and let me just tell you, there is nothing your UN resolutions have ever done about this, and no soundbite I come up with, no matter how good my English gets, no soundbite will bring them back to life. No soundbite will fix this. We teach life, sir. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians wake up every morning to teach the rest of the world life, sir.
Thank you.